Well, I started seeing you pop up on my radar several years ago and friended you because you had a lot of stuff going on.
That's not true. It's always been true.
And you're a whirlwind. So I am curious, what began your passion in this field and your wanting to write and perform? Like, give me sort of a time frame or something that got you going on this journey.
Well, I think right from the get-go, you've hit the nail on the head. I'm the kind of person that I wake up and if I see, empty space, I want to fill it. So I've been spending my whole life filling my life up with productive and creative activities that I can share with other people and that benefit other people. So that is a precursor to poetry itself, which is the particular field I do that in.
Mhm. But about what's the age range when the poetry thing took off in
Oh,
your
well,
head?
as a hobbyist, in my early 20s, I had a little bit to write about, but I didn't have a lot of life experience, and I wasn't sure how to generate ideas for poems except by studying some subject. So, um, I was an occasional poet for about 10 years, and as time went on and my experiences grew and the matrix of my understanding of the world grew, the perspectives which gave me the ideas for poetry uh, began to blossom like a garden. So that was in my early 30s. I was in a position that I was seeing prospects for poetry all around me.
When were you in the Peace Corps?
Yeah, I was in the Peace Corps. That was in the 70s, so let's see, I guess I was in my 30s. And it was a 2-year gig I did in Korea, South Korea, and it was health work. Uh, I didn't have any particular career. I was an English major, right? So, but I got picked up as a tuberculosis control worker in a rural health center in Korea, and I spent 2 years going out and visiting patients and village leaders and drinking with people and just having a good time.
Um,
Korea,
did you
Korea's not that good time.
did you write a lot when you were there?
But I probably wrote 2 dozen poems in 2 years. So
Ah,
this was in my life gathering phase.
okay. Uh, and you lived in UK for 5 years. Well, what brought you there? Were you teaching?
After Korea, I did some proper public health study, got an MFA at Chapel Hill in North Carolina. And I was in public health for 5 years. And then during the Reagan administration, when public health money looked like it was drying up, I made some kind of a decision of rationalization, maybe, that, I could work in the Air Force, United States Air Force, as a medical service officer. I thought, well, the money's going to go into military, and I can say, I mean, after all, Walt Whitman was a medical guy, during the Civil War, so I could rationalize it in my mind. Turned out it was wrong, but that was my thinking at the time. So I joined the Air Force, and I had a tour of duty in California, second tour in England, which is how I happened to be in England for a couple of years.
Mhm. And how long have you been at the writer in residence at Walt Whitman's birthplace, and how did that come about? Was there a application process, or somebody just picked you up, says we got to have you? And
Well, I have a long relationship with the Walt Whitman Birthplace going back to 1988. So it's, a couple of decades, maybe 4 decades. As a as a journalist for the Long Islander newspaper, it's a local paper, was founded by Walt Whitman. And each year, one of the articles I wrote out of the thousands of articles I wrote every year was an interview with a poet in residence at the Walt Whitman Birthplace, and I was interviewing Yevtushenko and Carolyn Forche and Galway Canal, and just really major national and international poets. So I had established this relationship for a number of years as a journalist with a relationship with the birthplace. But as I emerged as a poet myself, it got to be a point where they created a position of writer in residence. It's kind of a chief cook and bottle washer type position,
Mhm.
doing the doing the kitchen work of being of promoting poetry and encouraging poetry through the Walt Whitman Birthplace. They gave somebody the position for a year, and after a year, they gave it to me. And at that point, this was 2011. It was supposed to be like an annual thing, but they just won't quit me. So
Yeah, it's kind of
yeah,
lifetime, maybe now.
yeah, it's been 13, 14 years now.
Yeah,
They
well,
just won't quit me.
and there's several publications that you're part editor of and full editor of, and there's something in the newspaper that's involved with the Walt Whitman birthplace. What am I talking about here? And also Poets Building Bridges. Talk to me about some of these projects that are ongoing that you're part of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 3 months into returning to the United States from England, I came home to Huntington and I picked up a job as a journalist at the Long Islander newspaper. The Long Islander was founded by Walt Whitman in 1838. It was the oldest weekly paper in New York, or I don't know, maybe the United States. Just a really old paper founded by Walt Whitman. He used for a year or two, he used to hitch up his horse on the wagon and used to ride around delivering the paper, across half of Long Island for a couple of years. Then he moved to Brooklyn and he started doing like newspaper work for big publications, at the time, Brooklyn Daily Eagle, and others. Well, so it existed continuously into the present, which was at that time 1988, and still exists to this day. And when I came in 1988, it had not published any poetry in 145 years. But I said, hey, well, why don't I start a poetry column in Walt's paper called Walt's Corner, a weekly column? And they said, yeah, go ahead, do it. I had space on the editorial page. So I started that in March or April of 1988, and still do it to this day. So that's a weekly publication with it's a community-based publication, but because of my connections and relationships, I brought in poets from all around, not only Long Island, not only New York, not only America, but around the world to this weekly column. That was my first first folk poetry publishing venture when I returned to the United States from England.
Okay. And tell me about Poets Building Bridges. What your aim truly is there and how long that's been going on, and do you foresee that going on indefinitely?
Uh, well, we're in a third season, doing a triangulation of communities of poets around the world by Zoom. Um, First year was once a week. I did it for a month in the month of April or March, I forget what, but that was a little too intense. So the second year I spaced it out one a month. Principle is to get communities of poets, from maybe California, one group from Pennsylvania, one group from who knows, it could be Albania or Italy or something like that, and three or four from each of these locations, and just meet and share our work for an hour and a half by Zoom, an hour and 45 minutes. It's the right amount of time. It's a good structure because it's not just like isolated individuals with no, what's the connection? It's just whoever happens to be, invited. So it's communities building, pyramiding off of their own community structure
Mhm,
to build a new sense of community across, geographic distances.
mhm.
It's worked. It's worked well.
Yeah, okay. Something I've been wondering. Um, yeah, I called in a comment a couple of years ago or so that you opened for Sappho Fest for Donovan.
Yeah.
Well, he was my big time poetic musical hero when I was a teenager and through several decades. Everybody has people that they really that mean a lot to them, or
Yeah.
the art they produce does. So that perked up my ears. How did that come about? Was that a personal invitation, or how
Yeah,
did, yeah.
that was personal. It's just a little circuitous, um, but I should preface it by saying that Donovan was also my adolescent, early, like 17, 18, 19-year-old musical hero. So
Yeah, okay.
it's like, this is like, a cat may look at a king. And as it happened over the course of decades, I went on with my life and did various things. At the time, I was the curator of the Northport Historical Society, where Jack Kerouac had lived during part of his career, during part of his life. He lived in Northport, his first place he bought a home. But Donovan, no, this is not out of the blue, because I'd gone to perform in Wales and ran into some people in Wales at the Dylan Thomas Center who were related to Donovan. They liked my work. They told him about my work. So that was the first step in the process. Second step was he was researching an album, Beat Hotel or something like that, or he was doing a beat influenced album. So he was going around researching for that. And through them, he contacted me in Northport, said, give me a Kerouac tour. So one day, this car full of, British and Scottish, English and Scottish musicians rolled up to Northport. He jumped out and he said, give me the tour. And, so we took the tour. Afterwards, we went down to a Mexican place and we had pina coladas and ate tacos, and we just hit it off. It was a really nice relationship. That was the beginning of, an occasional exchange with him. When he'd come to New York, he'd look me up and say, come down to this thing. I'm doing this thing at wherever it happened to be. It might be at Ram Dass's ashram, and he'd say, "Come on down, George." So I mean, he made me part of his entourage in New
Uh,
York when he would come to town. At a certain point, he got an invitation, or he worked up these pieces of art, paintings of Sappho that he had done, kind of like black and white. And he got in touch with the Center for Hellenic Studies in Washington, D.C. And there was an entity down there that set up this exhibition of his work, and he was going to do a concert. So he said, George, you want to come down and open for me? And of course I said, yeah. So I hopped on a train, and rode down to Washington and showed up at the Center for Hellenic Studies, and they treated me like royalty. It was amazing to be on the
wow.
other side of the glass and to be treated like a real celebrity, to be on the red carpet. But that's what it was.
Yeah, wow. I can imagine that was incredible. But also imagine you've had many incredible experiences. Would you like to mention just a couple that come to your mind that stand out in your travels around the world in
You
your
know,
poetry career?
very much catch as catch can, you excuse me. I would love if Patti Smith took a real interest in hanging out and working together with me on poetry. But no, I've seen her in the basement of the Mercury Lounge, where we're getting ready to do a gig, and we're in the basement sitting on kegs of beer, stacks of beer, and out of the dust, out of the dark, walks in, Patti Smith with her people, and she just sits and bullshits with us and disappears, or Matt. Uh, um, I can't give it. What's the name of the actor's first name is Matt. He shows up at the Bowery Poetry Club. He was researching some role he was going to do. He wanted to check out what it means to be a poet. So he shows up and bullshits with me. Peter Max, the painter,
Yeah.
60s painter, Peter Max. He I interviewed him because he was doing a show at like a Barnes and Noble or something like that. He says, "Come back to my studio." We'll go back to his studio, and and we're drinking and having a good time and enjoying ourselves. And he says, "I want to work with you on this project." So he gives me a stack of pictures and says, "I want you to write something. We'll make it into a picture book." said, okay, and I wrote something else. I gave it to him, and that was that. So we have these episodic moments like that where there's a connection. But in terms of sustained relationships, I got very few.
So there's a book out there with Peter Max in your words?
I don't know if it was ever published, but I did the thing. Turned it over to him. I
Uh-huh.
never got a penny for it, but you know,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun, it sounds like. Anyway,
yeah.
well, at this point, unless you want to mention something like, do you have a book just coming out or something you want to say about a project? And then we'll have you read a few pieces.
Only to say that in the past year, I've been, working a lot with trying to turn poetry into either spoken word or actual lyrics with a music with musicians. I've got 4 or 5 albums that are out at this point. One with a group in Greece, another a pickup group that kind of led by Kevin Twig, the drummer for David Abraham and some others who produced an album from the book Blowing Through Secaucus, so that's available. I'm supposed to say that you can get it through streaming, so I make a penny for every 1,000 that it's sold or something like that. But you can get it free on YouTube. So that album came out. It was recently, went into the Grammy process. But anybody watching the Grammys the other night, it was quite clear that we weren't there. We were not at the Grammys, so we didn't even come close to being nominated or winning. But it's fun to extend the ecological system of what we do in poetry any way that we possibly can. That's one of the ways I'm trying to do that, by collaborating with musicians.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm excited about video poetry, and the more creative, the better. So I'm always interested in that, though. It's not that easy getting people to come to your YouTube, but anyway, it's not going to stop me from working with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about, generating likes or generating hits or something like that. That's a mental process, and it's some kind of a marketing process. I just don't have chops for it. But for example, Hao Shui, who's a major poet in China with the World Poetry Movement. He's taken over the years an interest in my work. He's translating a book of my poems into Chinese. He facilitated my being named the Poet of the Year at the Baoji, Poetry Festival. And just today, actually, as we speak here on February 7th, I don't know where people are going to be listening to this. There's a international poetry film festival in Beijing. And he had somebody translate one of my poems into Chinese, and they produced a poem video out of it in Chinese, which I've yet to see. So I'm going to see it in the next couple of days.
Yeah,
So
that sounds thrilling to me. I've yet to be translated as far as I know, but that seems like a thrill to me. Do you have some poems ready to share with us?
yeah, I could read a poem or two. Let's see how kind of time we got. But I have some recent poems that I'm reading around. This one's called "Listening to Jazz on a Rainy Bebop Afternoon," because it's the music of the old daddy hipsters turning things inside out, because the brightness and benevolence of their blowing in the heart of a dark, intolerant age releases strength of mind and soul craziness, blows joy back into a joyless world and spirit back into the secret bloodstream of material existence. Because strange cats were dodging raindrops and hopping from club to club in the broken-hearted streets of Chicago and Kansas City and San Antonio and Los Angeles and 50s middle America. Because we should be dodging raindrops too. Because the old daddy hipsters were gone magic visionary creatures rearranging the furniture in a down-and-out age. They were revolutionaries, they're apparitions, they were spies. Because this is a down-and-out age too. The sad, pitiful stupidity of the world is with us in all its essentialities and particulars. There's a new sinister efficiency in American society to replace the old. Because to roll with it, to play the game in any nation when the communion of free soul travelers is declared illegal is sheer madness. Because jazz is the secret elixir. The bounce is real. and music is eternity. Because solidarity with the old daddy hipsters on a rainy bebop afternoon in New York City is exactly what is needed to give strength to the heart and rekindle the beautiful embryonic derangement of the senses in the gone world.
Okay. Yep.
Listening to jazz on a rainy bebop.
Oh. One more?
Yeah. I live inside, I don't read this too often. I'm just working on it a little bit. I live inside a chalk drawn circle. You imagine kids, on a sidewalk drawing hopscotch or something like that. This is a chalk drawn circle. I live inside a chalk drawn circle. The line I draw around myself. I'm the monkey wrench. I'm the fly in the ointment. I'm the conductor of a trolley that never knew a track. I'm a chemist concocting illegal rhymes. I hand out citations to everybody. I teach the snow to fall, the stones beneath the surface of the green sea to sing. I cast out evil when evil shows its face. I live inside a chalk-drawn circle. I'm incurious of sinners. I'm indifferent to soldiers. I'm a magical thinker who wanders among the ruins wearing bedroom slippers and taking notes. I'm a child at the most serious play, dangerous and free. I live inside a chalk circle and tell tales concerning societies and men, a canary that never knew a cage, a baker of a kind of bread that never felt a knife. I'm a maker of roof tiles that never felt the falling rain. And I sing my song, and whole gardens appear where bombs once fell. I heard giraffe on tenement rooftops. I wave my hand, and paintings appear on hospital walls. I am the secret mixologist of dreams. I live in a pottery jar and wait to be filled. I live in a glass pitcher and I wait to be emptied. I live alone in my prison. I take my time. I study the darkness, an earthquake that never made a table shake, a crust of bread that never swept itself under a carpet. A lie never told, a love never betrayed, a vice that never happened. I live inside a chalk-drawn circle, a lighter of imaginary dynamite that punctures fear and outlaws love and outlasts anything which lives outside the chalk-drawn circle.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with me. So
Thank you
nice
for anything
to,
for poetry. Love your work.
thank you. Nice to meet you. All righty. I'll have this up real soon. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.